Here's my Jane Austen inspired outfit, but a modern one because it has like an empire waist, long dress. I'm wearing faux pearls. It has kind of a Regency vibe to it. So, what would happen if we had a retelling of Jane Austen in the digital age with ChatGPT? I want to know. What do you think would happen?
So, we're going to talk about Pride and Prejudice reimagined in the digital age. And we're using Chat GPT to create this little story of what could happen in Pride and Prejudice in the digital age. Title: Pride and Prejudice Reimagined, Chapter 1, First Impressions in the bustling city filled with social media updates and dating apps. The Bennet family stood out with their unique quirks. Mrs. Bennet, a social media enthusiast, was determined to find suitable matches for her 5 daughters, Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, and Lydia. One fine evening, a prestigious bachelor, Mr. Bingley, moved into the grand Netherfield estate nearby. News of his arrival quickly spread throughout the town and reached the Bennet household. Mrs. Bennet's matchmaking instincts were awakened. Jane, the eldest Bennet sister, was excited. Elizabeth, on the other hand, was more skeptical. She had little interest in the superficiality of the social scene. Mr. Bingley was immediately smitten by Jane's beauty and kindness. It was a grand affair filled with vibrant music, elegant gowns, and buzzing energy of the social elite. Mrs. Bennet, accompanied by 5 daughters, made sure to arrive early, eager to catch Mr. Bingley's attention and secure a favorable impression. Jane, with her graceful demeanor and captivating smile, effortlessly caught the eye of a distinguished bachelor. They engaged in light-hearted conversation after mingling with the melodic tunes of the orchestra. It seemed that the connection between Jane and Mr. Bingley was blossoming, much to Mrs. Bennet's delight. Meanwhile, Elizabeth observed the scene from a distance, her keen eyes taking in the interactions with a hint of amusement. She had always been known for her quick wit and discerning nature, which often set her apart from the more conventional expectations of society. As Elizabeth scanned the room, her gaze inadvertently locked with that of the tall, enigmatic gentleman who stood beside Mr. Bingley. That was Mr. Darcy, a friend of the bachelor and a man known for his reserved manner and aloof demeanor. Elizabeth's curiosity was piqued. Their eyes met for only one brief moment, but it left an impression on both of them. Elizabeth saw a flicker of something beneath Darcy's composed exterior, a glimmer of depth and mystery, and it intrigued her, though she couldn't quite pinpoint the nature of her interest. Unbeknownst to Elizabeth, Mr. Darcy also found himself captivated by the young woman's lively presence. Her intelligence and independent spirit were a refreshing change from the usual company he encountered. However, his pride and the prejudice he held towards those of lower social standing initially hindered him from acknowledging the spark of connection he felt. As the evening wore on, Elizabeth decided to approach her sister, who was still engaged in conversation with Mr. Bingley. She couldn't help but express her amusement and skepticism regarding the whole affair. Jane, my dear, I can see why you find Mr. Bingley amiable, but do not let the glitter and charm of this world blind you to the true nature of those around us, Elizabeth warned, her voice tinged with a mixture of concern and jest. Jane smiled, her eyes twinkling with affection for her sister. Oh, Lizzie, you always have a way of seeing beyond the surface, but let us not judge too quickly. Who knows what surprises await us in the days to come? Elizabeth couldn't help but smile back. Appreciating her sister's optimism and open mindedness, she resolved to keep an open heart as well, willing to discover what lay beneath the social facades that surrounded them. Little did Elizabeth know that her encounter with Mr. Darcy was only the beginning of a tumultuous journey that would challenge her preconceived notions and ignite a whirlwind of emotions. As their paths continued to intertwine, both their lives would be forever altered, and the first impressions would be put to the ultimate test. What is chapter 3? Chapter 3: Preconceptions and Misunderstandings. In the aftermath of the glittering ball, the Bennet household buzzed with excitement and anticipation. Mrs. Bennet eagerly discussed Jane's enchanting evening with Mr. Bingley, relishing the prospect of a budding romance. However, Elizabeth remained skeptical, her keen mind questioning the authenticity of their connection. As days turned into weeks, the Bennet family found themselves embroiled in a whirlwind of social events, each one offering a chance to encounter Mr. Bingley and his enigmatic friend Mr. Darcy. Elizabeth encounters with Mr. Darcy were marked by brief yet charged exchanges, leaving her both intrigued and wary. One afternoon, while strolling through the lush countryside near Longbourn, Elizabeth stumbled upon Mr. Darcy. The encounter took both of them by surprise, their paths unexpectedly crossing in this quiet corner of the world. A momentary silence hung between them. Elizabeth's independent spirit urged her to break the silence and to engage in a conversation with an intriguing man who had captured her attention. With a hint of playfulness in her eyes, she greeted him. Mr. Darcy, a chance encounter. Indeed. What brings you to this peaceful retreat? Mr. Darcy, initially taken aback by Elizabeth's presence, recovered quickly, his gaze meeting hers with a mixture of curiosity and guarded reserve. Miss Bennet, he responded, his voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. I sought solace from the clamor of society and found respite in the serenity of nature. Their conversation ebbed and flowed, veering from light-hearted banter to deeper subjects. Elizabeth's wit matched Mr. Darcy's intellect, creating a dance of words that both challenged and intrigued them. However, their encounter was cut short when an unforeseen rain shower forced them to seek shelter beneath a canopy of trees. As they stood side by side, sheltered from the rain, the atmosphere crackled with unspoken thoughts and emotions. Elizabeth's eyes flickered with a mix of curiosity and vulnerability, while Mr. Darcy's guarded facade softened ever so slightly. In that moment, Elizabeth's preconceptions and prejudices began to waver. She saw glimpses of a man who is more than an aloof exterior, a man grappling with his own inner conflicts and vulnerabilities. It was a revelation that stirred something within her, something she couldn't quite put her words into. However, as the rain subsided and the sun peeked through the clouds, reality intruded upon their secluded haven. Elizabeth bid Mr. Darcy farewell, a new-found curiosity swirling within her. Their encounter left an indelible mark, a seed of doubt and intrigue that would continue to grow for days to come. Meanwhile, back at Longbourn, whispers of a growing attachment between Jane and Mr. Bingley reached Elizabeth's ears. Though happy for her sister, Elizabeth couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was amiss. A stark contrast between Jane's blossoming romance and her own complex encounters with Mr. Darcy left her questioning the nature of love, the mask people wore, the intricate dance between Pride and Prejudice. The days that followed, Elizabeth found herself unwittingly drawn into a web of misunderstandings, societal expectations, and the weight of her own convictions. Little did she know that the path to true understanding and love would require her to confront the deepest fears and challenges her own prejudices and unravel the enigma of Mr. Darcy. To be continued.